The World Health Organization has officially declared the ongoing Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo an international health emergency. On the ground, the virus has already claimed at least 87 lives in the DRC, and a recent fatality just crossed the border into neighboring Uganda. To understand the gravity of that declaration, we have to look at the virus's history. Over the last half-century, Ebola has killed more than 15,000 people across the African continent. A public health emergency of international concern, or PHEIC, is the highest level of alert the WHO can raise, putting this outbreak on the same administrative tier as COVID-19 and Mpox. To trigger it, an outbreak must meet 3 criteria. It must be sudden, unexpected, and actively threaten to cross international borders. Activating this alert is rare. Officials rely strictly on these 3 pillars to determine when global intervention is required. So, with 50 years of medical advancements and virology research behind us, why does a localized outbreak of Ebola still meet the extreme criteria needed to sound the world's highest public health alarm? The answer starts with the biological source of the virus. Experts believe that fruit bats serve as the natural reservoir for Ebola. Interestingly, the bats carry the virus without ever falling ill themselves. A spillover event happens when the virus jumps from those natural carriers into intermediary wildlife, like forest apes, antelopes, or porcupines, and eventually makes its way into the human population. Once a person is infected, the virus is highly deceptive. It can incubate inside a human host for anywhere from 2 days to 3 full weeks before a single symptom appears. But when the illness finally breaks, it happens intensely. What starts as fever and muscle weakness rapidly destabilizes into severe internal and external bleeding, quickly followed by total organ failure. A virus that hides completely undetected for weeks, only to trigger a violently lethal onset of symptoms, makes individual outbreaks nearly impossible to predict. It perfectly fulfills the WHO's requirement for a sudden threat. Unlike many highly contagious respiratory diseases, Ebola does not travel through the air. Human-to-human transmission relies entirely on direct, physical contact with the bodily fluids of an infected person, such as blood, vomit, or other secretions. This creates a unique vulnerability. Deep-rooted cultural behaviors, specifically traditional burial practices that require family members to physically interact with the victims, can unexpectedly accelerate the transmission chain within a community. Scientists have identified 6 distinct strains of the virus, with the Zaire strain driving the most lethal outbreaks on record. This line graph mapping the 2013 epidemic shows an aggressive, exponential spike in fatalities radiating out from a single origin point in Guinea. By the time the outbreak ended in 2016, the virus had torn across the borders of Liberia and Sierra Leone, killing more than 11,300 people. And the danger remains heavily concentrated in the Democratic Republic of Congo today. Between 2018 and 2020, the country endured its worst localized outbreak, an event that killed nearly 2,300 people. Because transmission rides on human movement and deeply held traditions, local clusters can explode into regional crises. That volatility checks off the final criteria for an international emergency. But the medical landscape today looks very different than it did when the virus was first discovered near the Ebola River in 1976. Today, global health agencies are armed with highly targeted vaccines for the lethal Zaire strain and are actively testing potential candidates for the Sudan strain. For those who are already infected, modern therapeutics like lab-developed antibody treatments and aggressive rehydration protocols have drastically improved survival rates. However, these pharmaceutical tools rely completely on strict logistical enforcement on the ground. Without frontline practices like rapid detection, temperature screening, and immediate patient isolation, the medicines cannot break the chain of transmission. The PHEIC declaration serves as the essential administrative trigger that forces international funding, vaccines, and community awareness to the front lines, containing a regional outbreak before it has the chance to become a global pandemic.